What is going on, everyone? Anthony Drew Gary here, and on this episode of the How To Show, I've got the special honor of bringing on the self-proclaimed shrimp cocktail hype man, who is Bryn Jones. Looking forward to hearing his story and the types of things that he's been doing with the St. Elmos Steakhouse and the Hughes Culinary team about ancillary products that they've released over the last several years that really do a good job of making brand recognition collide with new products that you can get on the shelves at your local grocer. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring on Bryn. Bryn Jones, welcome to the How To Show. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, happy to hang out with you. Yeah,
Yeah,
nice early morning this morning. This is perfect.
I appreciate that, and I think so too. And again, I wanted to reach out to you because behind the scenes, I have been a fan of yours for a number of years, and I'm on the record on LinkedIn, and maybe it's unfair to say this, but when I moved to Indianapolis about 10, 12 years ago, Indianapolis had a well-known steakhouse that was called St. Elmo's and had been around for many years before that. But now I think of St. Elmo's as a brand, and it was a brand before that, but it is a lot of different things now. And
Mhm.
I believe, if I have my information correct, that you've been behind the scenes on that for a number of years, and I'd love to get pieces of that story of where you came from, where you are now, and potentially where it's going. And so if you're willing to share that kind of stuff with us, I know that myself and my audience would be eager to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I guess I don't know how far you want to go back, but um, yeah, I mean, personally, I was one of those kids that ran a grocery store out of his locker in high school, and I've just always been intrigued by business. I mean, I started collecting baseball cards not as because I love baseball cards, but because I thought they were an investment, for the future. So I just always been intrigued by business. I always wanted to be around it. My father was in business, and that's just always been something that. I mean, I think sometimes people change the careers they want to do a number of times in life. And I think I've wanted to be in business and specifically marketing within business since I was probably about 10. So it's just always been my passion. And I started with the group, St. Elmo, so to kind of to backtrack a little bit on that group. So they at one time they had Arby's restaurants, and that's where I started with the group. They had upwards of 38, I think, at their peak, and in 5 different states. And I ran all sales and marketing for those groups, for those restaurants. And then about 11 years ago, basically 6 months before the Super Bowl, so late 2011, I had come up essentially to still kind of oversee the marketing on the RV side, but really to take focus on Harry and Izzy's in St. Elmo. I've been doing that ever since. And yeah, the cocktail sauce and seasoning and whiskey and cocktails and all of that stuff has been the better part of 11 years. So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, so you're already telling me things that I think the average person doesn't know, that family of companies is involved in restaurant tourism farther beyond than just the namesakes that they have. So that's fascinating to me.
Mhm.
And so when you start getting into, working in the St. Elmo's brand and working in the Harry and Izzy's world, at the time that you came in, were there any of those thoughts that, hey, we've got brand recognition here and that we could have a product line that supplements it, drives our name across multiple channels? What was the
Mhm.
thought process when that first started, and how did that come to be?
So yeah, so Craig Hughes owns St. Elmo, co-owns St. Elmo with his father Steve, and yeah, I mean Steve is just like an OG, restaurant guy in Indiana. I mean he was president of Steak and Shake for a number of years. Noble Romans was actually his original concept. He founded that in Bloomington. Eventually took that public, used that to buy St. Elmo and a number of investments. So, I mean he's just a wealth of knowledge and experience in the state and really even beyond the state for restaurant expertise. And on the retail side, Craig, it was really Craig's vision. It was like, man, can we take this cocktail sauce that everybody loves and really more from a servant standpoint of people going, hey, we'd love to buy this. Can you make this readily available? And I won't go into all of the details on that, but horseradish. The quick explanation on that is as soon as you prepare it, put it in the bottle, process it, whatever, it's always losing heat gradually over time. And so it was really a ton of R&D. I mean, literally years trying to figure out how to keep that product cold over time. And we're still refining it. I mean, we've been doing it for 11 years and we're still working with our co-packers to try to find ways to make it a little bit better and a little bit closer to the restaurant. But we've got it pretty darn close. But it was Craig's desire to go, hey, people want this. How do we get this in a bottle? So he had started it, and then I just kind of ran with it really kind of out of the gate. I mean, he was managing, multiple different restaurants, and not even restaurants, but restaurant brands. And I'd done really everything up to that point in my career: business development, sales, marketing, really everything you need to kind of jumpstart that. So I just kind of ran with it. And yeah, I think first year, I want to say we did about 2,000 cases, and fast forward to today, we're doing, close to probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 million bottles a year on all the different products that we're doing. And it's just grown exponentially. So it's been a wild ride.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
And for the benefit of anybody watching, if you have not had the pleasure of going to a St. Elmo's or a Harry and Izzy's and having some of this horseradish shrimp cocktail sauce, I'm not going to spoil what I think the experience is. Bryn mentioned the word heat. I don't think he's doing it justice. And so the logic there is go check it out for yourself. It's an experience. It is well worth the trip. But what you're doing is ultimately making it available to people who don't live directly within, a reasonable drive to dinner for Indianapolis. And so that's another step in this story that I want to talk about, because I know that there are a lot of different stores that are featuring you guys now and covering you, and you have supply chain relationships with. But in my mind, I see you guys with prime position locations within Meyer, and I want to just dive into this story a little deeper. How do we go from we've got this bottle of cocktail sauce and we think that this could be a hit to we are in your face in the grocery store and you are buying it because A, you recognize us, B, we have a superior product, and C, we've got the relationships to get it close to your home?
Yeah, I think really the secret sauce, if I can use a horrible pun, but the thing that makes St. Elmo special is like it's the people, and it's the culture that this place is built with Craig and his father Steve, in that we're able to attract like just top talent, and there's people that, I mean, just about everybody on our executive leadership team is, getting headhunted every other week, and everybody stays because they love the company. They love the ownership. It's definitely a sense of family. And so the advantage that we get from that is we get some really badass, amazing people that are able to push this forward. And so originally it started, as I said earlier, it was me doing cocktail sauce and selling that as my side hustle, because I'm running, marketing for all of these different, restaurants. And, if you add in the Arby's, I mean, I'm guessing we were 60, $70 million in sales as a restaurant company and running the marketing. So that was a huge, role for me at the time. And I'm kind of the cocktail sauce, the way I describe it is I was almost kind of like my side hustle, but then it just kept growing. And I can still remember going back, 10, 11 years when we started it and going, I can't let this fail. Like this has to be successful. And it literally just kept me up at night. I'm like, there's no way I will eat my arm off before I let this fail, was kind of like my mentality. And I don't know if it was legacy or just, the reverence and respect that I had for Craig and Steve and didn't want to let them down. But it really just kind of kept growing. And so every year after that first year, 2,000 cases, we had grown it about typically 25, 35, some years is upwards of 50%, but averaged over that time frame. Every year we grew it at about 30%. And you can, each year that compounds, right? It's like interest. And so, when you're growing 30% on 2,000 cases, it's not a big deal. When you grow 30% on, we did 900,000 units last year, and you're going, holy shit, now we're talking about big numbers. So it really kind of grew organically and through, hiring the right people and maintaining, a really good culture that gets people excited to come to work, and in that family unit that I said. So one of the first hires we made was with a guy named Travis, and Travis came on, Travis Strong. He came on I think he had about 15, maybe 20 years, probably 15 years experience within retail. I mean, and it's war in grocery stores. You talk about displays, like it's somebody's trying to take your space every day, and you need to be in there, and it's kind of blocking and tackling, and it's hard work to develop those relationships. And he kind of came in, with really executing at a very high level. I think within his company, it was a national retail brand that had, I think, like 17 reps in 3 states, and he was in almost every category, the leader within, out of those 17 people doing that job. And we were like, well, let's go find the guy that's the best. And that's kind of what we did, bringing Travis on. And, I'll never forget, we're in the office like the first day, and he's like, all right, well, what's the training program? What do you want to, what do we need to do to build this thing and grow it? And I'm like, bro, you're the training program. I'm like, we hired you because 10 times what I know, and he was really the one that started working on displays and, managing those relationships, and knew the questions to ask, and the buttons to push and levers to pull to get those things to happen. And then from there, it's just been, a steady grind, both from sales and marketing, because you kind of have to have both. You can get that feature through a relationship, but if your sales don't really drive and work well for, the retailers that you're partnering with, then that space is going to go away really quick. So everything is monetized, everything is numbers based. The relationships, like I said, can get you in the door, but you really need to have something that can move the needle and make those guys money. And that's always been our approach. Staff, family, our team first. We really take care of our team from a culture and, pay and everything, to make sure that we're able to retain this awesome team that we have. And then from there, I've always taken the approach of making sure our vendors come, a close second. That way, we're looking at it from their perspective, and then they're going to be more apt to look at it from our perspective and go to work from us and give us those opportunities, because we're going to put their needs in front of ours. And that's how we've been able to grow with a very small team. So Travis was the first, and then we hired a merchandiser. First merchandiser, his name is Andrea. She just got after it out in the stores and really started growing that. Now we have 3 merchandisers out in the field. We've got a guy locking down Ohio as kind of our sales rep, and he's all things in Ohio. A guy named Tyler, he's doing fantastic. Elliot is our national sales account director, who's clicking off some of these bigger accounts and really helping us grow. I mean, we're over 2,500 stores now at this point, is kind of our best estimate. So it's been a steady growth, steady grind, doing it with culture, hiring the right people, and just really working together for a common goal, and making sure that we stay focused on what those goals are. And we actually have our annual planning meeting next year, where we will literally get out of our office, get out of our restaurants, and then go sit in a room for an hour and really try to figure out what are we going after this year, and how do we approach it, how do we get after it. So
It's really an exciting story, and the way you tell it just makes it all the better. You've got the right people in the right spots, doing the right things, and generating results, as you're mentioning, 20 and 30% growth year over year. It's really incredible. And I mean, I say this as a customer. I failed to bring them into the room right now, but I can go into my kitchen. I can show you seasoning. I can show you on my bar cart. But I want to postpone the bar cart discussion a little bit into the future here.
yeah.
Because I'd love if we could let's just go a little bit of a timeline. I believe the first product we're talking about is the cocktail sauce. And can we
Yep.
talk about what came after that? Because you have a number of them in the store shelves down. If somebody is watching this and has heard of St. Elmo's, but for whatever reason they don't live in a geography where this stuff is on the shelves yet, what all is out
Mhm.
there?
Yeah, so it started with cocktail sauce. And that was, again, an extremely difficult product to do. I mean, the shelf life is only about 6 months, I think maybe 7 months now. We've been able to extend it a little bit, but in the grocery world, that's a very short shelf life. It's also a refrigerated product. That's the way we keep the heat in there, so it kind of knocks your teeth out when you take that first bite, which sounds like a horrible idea, but for what we do, it's what people have come to expect. So and we've grown that now to where I believe last we looked, Nielsen data, which tracks retail sales throughout the U.S. We are number two refrigerated cocktail sauce in terms of Nielsen data, and that actually doesn't even include our Costco sales, which were in 14 states for October, November, December on Costco. But yeah, but cocktail sauce was first. That's kind of the tip of the spear for us, what people really know us for. But seasoning came about because a lot of it similar to cocktail sauce. We had people that wanted it, or like, hey, we're known for steaks too. Why don't we try seasoning? And I was really excited to try seasoning because it had one, it wasn't refrigerated, and the shelf life is almost forever. I think our seasoning typically turns over within 2 to 3 months. It's a fast turn because it sells fast. But I mean, it was a 2 year shelf life technically, and I'm going great. So I can just sell something in and not have to worry about it for 2 years. That was like, I was like just so stressed out and just the challenges and supply chain challenges and all of that comes with a refrigerated product with a short shelf life. As one person that was managing supply and distribution was just a headache and a bit of a nightmare. But it's better now that we have an expanded team. But yeah, it was cocktail sauce first, then seasoning. I believe the next after that we did prepared horseradish, and they've all kind of kept a cadence of about one per year. We added steak sauce. And then, we really, the way we've grown our products has been very strategic. We've been, I would say, I don't know, diligent is the right word, but make sure that what we do is authentic, right? Like we know with the brand that we've been able to build, for over a century in Indianapolis, that like we could sell, St. Elmo crackers, St. Elmo bread, like we could slap our name on anything and people would probably buy it at least initially. But every time you do that, when you roll out a product to retail that doesn't have a story, that isn't something that you actually do in the restaurants, in our restaurants, then you're going to lose that authenticity and just transparency of who we are and what we're doing. So we were very strategic and very slow in terms of how we rolled out products, by only doing things that we're known for, that are different, that we're bringing something to market that has, a point of differentiation in the market, as opposed to bringing something out because, we can make some money on it. So that's always been the focus. But pretty much, I would say almost rolling out one new product a year to one new product every other year. And then COVID hit and we went, shit, like let's do whatever we can do it. Right before COVID started, probably a few months before COVID started, we were looking for what was that next product. And we had 5 different items that we were looking at potentially rolling out. And then, COVID hit and we went, all right, instead of trying to pick one out of these 5, we literally launched all 5 at once, just to try to get, as much as we could in terms of cash flow coming into the company. Because, how do we keep paying people? I mean, when COVID first started, talk about, culture and leadership and doing the right thing. While virtually every other restaurant group I'm aware of was furloughing everybody, laying people off, Craig and his father, Steve, basically paid for 2 months a 7-figure payroll, and that number didn't start with a 1, out of their pockets, and basically going, hey, we're willing to go into debt for our team to make sure that they can pay their bills, which was just an incredible story in itself, and kind of speaks to why everybody would be willing to run through walls for those guys. But yeah, back to retail, we basically went, let's just do it all, like whatever we could do from a sales standpoint to try to, put some money in the bank so we could continue, paying our staff. We rolled those products out in pretty close to record time. Out of the 5 that we rolled out, 4 of them have stuck. We discontinued 1 because the sales just weren't quite what we needed them to be, and we might lose one other one this year. But we don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, that happens in retail all the time. So, but yeah, that's fast forward through all of those. And then 2019, you kind of alluded to earlier, was the cocktails. So our big cocktail that we serve in the restaurants is the Elmo Cola, and that's kind of one of our famous kind of top cocktails that we've been doing for about 10 years. And we rolled that out in 2019. And when we did that, we kind of, talking with our distributor, RNDC, and they'd kind of said, hey, if you guys do, 1,500 cases, over the course of a year, that's going to be a fantastic year. And, our sales team kind of went, let's see what we can do. Like I mean, um, there's a fine line between arrogance and confidence, I think. And we were definitely maybe towing that line, but certainly very, very confident in what we could do because we had built, extremely strong relationships with Costco, Meijer, Kroger, Market District, Target. I mean, if you go, hey, who's the top 5 retailers in the state of Indiana for grocery stores? We were already in 5 of them, in 5 out of 5, and had great relationships. So we knew we were going to get the shelf space, and then it was just a matter of what was the velocity and how quick did it sell. And so long story short, we rolled that first product out, and instead of doing 1,500 cases, the first full year we did 16,000, and it was just like, crazy success, surpassed everyone's success, and now we've been building on that success over the last 3 years.
Yeah, it would be inappropriate if I didn't stop to congratulate that level of success. But I'm curious, I want to go back a little bit in time and remember a story and see if you remember this situation. So
Mhm.
the Elmo Cola, if you've not had one and you're listening along, is basically a cherry inspired bourbon drink with a Coke base. And so the St. Elmo's off the shelf grocery representation of that is a cherry infused bourbon, and you can buy the rest of the pieces that you need if you want a cherry in it or not, and you buy your Coke at the grocery store too, so that you can have one of these at home. And the first time that I saw this was a LinkedIn post from Bryn saying that this is coming out, and I saw this and I said, I've got to get one of these. So I went to my local Meijer, and they were out already. And this was the first week of the launch. And so if you remember, I messaged you on LinkedIn saying, where can I
Mhm.
get a bottle of these? I want a first run bottle. And you said
Yeah.
you might get lucky if you try the one in Noblesville. They had some left the last time we checked. And when I went that same morning, they were on the last box, and I did grab 2 of them. But you guys were spot on in your idea there that the people could do this at home and mimic a good portion of the same experience, and the people would be
Mhm.
cool with it.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, my passion is definitely marketing. I love business in general, but I love marketing, and how can you, there's certain things that you can do and different levers you can pull, and sometimes you come across them by accident. I mean, the first email blast we did, if I really want to go back, this is kind of a fun story, as I did, we got from the restaurants, we have a pretty big email list, right? So people that have dined in the restaurant and they, click, yes, I'm open to emails for marketing purposes. So I send an email out for cocktail sauce. When we just started online, we had no retail presence, we were in no stores, and just selling it online. And I sent an email out, and in the subject line, one of the hardest things to get in email marketing is what's your open rate, and it typically it's like 20%, 15, 10. Some people are low as 5. I mean, it's a hard thing to get, um, to get done right. And so in the subject line, I put warning from St. Elmo Steakhouse, and and it was like clickbait as hell, but I was like, screw it, let's just do it and see what happens. And we did, and the open rate, I don't remember it exactly, but I think the open rate was like 70%. It was like, you know, 7, 8 times industry average. And the number of sales that we did, like we in 24 hours, we did like $18,000 in sales of a cocktail sauce, and this is 11 years ago. And it was so nuts that we actually had to pull it off the website because we're looking at our sales, our forecast, and production forecast, and we're like, we've just sold through like 5 weeks worth of inventory, and if we don't like shut it off, like when's it gonna stop? Because we're already waiting 3 to 4 weeks before we send product out. We had no idea it was gonna just go that crazy. But back to bourbon, yeah, I mean, there's this weird thing that happens when, especially in the spirit world and bourbon world, is when people want something that they can't have. That's when it really kind of propels your brand in a positive way. And in that product, I mean, that was one we kind of came about it by accident because I mean, we knew our sales, we knew we were going to be 1,500 cases, but is it going to be 4,000, 3,000, something like that? And it was just crazy out of the gate. And we couldn't keep up. As soon as we were back on the shelf, we were sold out within 2 or 3 days. And it was just this ramp up period. And we didn't even really have the ability to solve our own problems. We were co-packing, which is where, another group is basically making your products for you to your recipe and your specs and everything, and your branding. And we were co-packing at the time, which now we run our own operations for all of the different spirit products. But back then, we're basically working with this group and they've got their own problems. And it was definitely a challenge. And I miss those days from a sales and marketing standpoint, but I'm also way happier with us just being able to focus on our own products now. But yeah, that was a little crazy. That nobody really saw that coming.
Yeah, and you're not a one-trick pony in the spirits world either. I've got more than one of those bottles on my shelf right now. Talk to me a little bit more about the evolution of that and how that came to be.
Yeah, so again, only roll out, like typically when you see a retail brand go into grocery stores, what they do is they go, all right, we're going to focus on, pasta sauces, or we're going to focus on, this condiments or whatever. And again, authenticity, be true to who we are. It's got to have a story. It's got to be different. Like cocktail sauce goes in the meat and seafood department, typically in the seafood in the refrigerated set. Seasoning goes in general grocery. Cocktails or prepared horseradish goes in like the deli section. Steak sauce is a different buyer. Creamy horseradish is literally every single thing that we rolled out basically has a different buyer. Fast forward to spirits, different buyer. So it's like if you could try to create a model of the most inefficient way to sell into grocery stores, we've created that model. So it's difficult from a sales standpoint, but it works for us because, be true to who you are and whatnot. But yeah, once we kind of expanded into spirits, the nice thing on that is, we took a step back and we went, wow, bourbon, cherry vanilla bourbon was, way more successful than us or anybody else thought. And it was like, well, can we take that same approach and roll out other prepared cocktails? Which for us, we feel like is something that we have a tremendous amount of brand equity in. And what I mean by that is ready to pour cocktails, which is everything that we do for St. Elmo, is going to be a finished product. If it's an old fashioned, we're putting, the bitters and the orange and, adding that little bit of sweetness in there and using an aged bourbon and all of that to create this cocktail that replicates and is very similar, almost identical to the cocktails that we serve in the restaurant. And so we're looking at it from the standpoint of, well, if bourbon was successful, could we do, what other cocktails could we do? And then one of the cool things about St. Elmo, well, I mean, it's not me. I think it's just built into our culture of how do we, keep the history and the storied traditions of St. Elmo and keep the menu pretty much the same. And the building is this, 120 plus year old building. And so how do you keep the history and the classic nature of it, but at the same time stay relevant and try to push the business forward in meaningful ways? I mean, we were the first restaurant to use open table in the state.
Thank you for doing that, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, it advances in technology and, how do we get better as an organization? And that's something that we've always pushed. So even though we're this classic old school steakhouse, we're using, any information we can in terms of technology, in terms of data. And we did that. Fast forward to the cocktails, we did that very much on that is looking at it instead of going, what cocktails do we think would sell? If we're another group that's in this, ready to pour cocktail category, I can only envision what that looks like is it's going to be a group of, 10 guys and gals get in a room and they all try to make a decision based on what they think is the best flavor, or it's going to be a mixologist and, a master distiller, blender, and they're going, this is the best flavor. Well, we didn't have to do that. We were able to go, all right, let's look at 10 years of sales data what are our top selling cocktails? What are the cocktails that people love? And we know they love it because we've nailed that recipe over the course of, in some cases, literally decades. And so we're looking at this sales data going, hey, as long as we take these products, we already know people have told us repeatedly over time, voicing with their dollars as votes. And they've told us these are what people like. These are what we like. And so those were the ones that we rolled out, to retail, because those were the products that we knew people liked. And then at that point, all we had to do was basically make sure that the flavor and the cocktail that we put in the bottle mirrored what we serve in the restaurant.
Yep.
And I think, back to other groups that are doing this, that's a huge advantage we have, putting, cocktails in a bottle that have been, struggled with or refined over, 2 or 3 decades. And that's what we're putting in a bottle, as opposed to that focus group is, 7, 8, 10, whatever, 50 people in a room, that are going to basically drink alcohol for an extended period of time and then try to make a good decision, which, you can certainly make decisions after drinking large amount of alcohol, but they're typically not your best decisions. And whether or not that's true, I still think we have a tremendous advantage because we're able to take sales data and then, it's almost a can't miss decision. You almost can't miss, as long as we hit that flavor profile, which we definitely did our due diligence to make sure that flavor hits. So yeah,
Yeah,
20,
you
25
come
dollars.
to it with the competitive advantage that you have all of the data. You have signature items that you can start to capture this lightning in a bottle. And maybe this is me as an outsider not seeing the story correctly, but with the launch of your ready to drink, you take these straight out of the bottle and you pour it into a glass, and that is your beverage. It seems to me that
Mhm.
this segment of the spirits market has blown up over the last 1 to 2 years. And I guess my question
Mhm.
here is, did you see that coming, or did you happen to find yourselves at the right place at the right time? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think all of those things. I think I wouldn't say that we necessarily saw it coming, but I think we kind of stumbled into it in 2019, and we were definitely ahead of the curve at that point. Nobody was really doing ready to ready to pour cocktails, which is a slight differentiation versus ready to drink. So ready to drink is essentially in the industry referred to as something that basically it's a cocktail that comes in a can. Those were just exploding at that time, and we kind of went, well, like we can do that, but this is really more what we're known for is, cocktails that come as kind of full strength cocktails. And so that was our focus. And really now is, I think, I would say the last year to 2 years, you've seen growth in that category, and it's only going to continue. But I think brands have had a little bit of a hard time because they're known for being a whiskey distillery or being a vodka company, or, they're not necessarily known for crafting amazing cocktails, which in our, back to our advantage, that's our DNA. We've got a guy, Kerry on our team I mean, Kerry's closing in on 40 years at St. Elmo and as a manager. And, he was drinking, Maker's Mark before anybody knew what Maker's Mark was. He's been drinking bourbon before, while everybody else was still on scotch, and nobody knew what the hell bourbon was. So there's some tremendous advantages that we have, and, having bartenders that have literally been bartending for 25, 30 years, making cocktails and taking that wealth of experience as well as that brand equity, marrying that together for these prepared cocktails, that's hard to beat. And that's really, I think, why we've seen the success that we've had. Just stay true to who we are, and not try to, not try to step outside of our comfort zone or outside of our lane.
Yeah, it's exciting for sure, and I'm thrilled for the success that you guys have had. And I'd be remiss if I didn't take this conversation in one more direction before we wrap up. It seems to me that every so often I see you, Bryn, in photographs around the 4th of July with this gentleman that most people recognize as being the guy who can eat more hot dogs than anybody else in the world. And his name's Joey Chestnut. If you're not following
Mhm.
around at home, he's a household name by now. He's been the man in this arena for probably a decade or more now. And so I guess I'm just curious. I know that there's a product line around Joey, but I'm curious how that relationship happened and has been fostered and how that came to be, because I see that as a really fun situation to be in. And so as a piece of envy that I'm going to borrow from you, how do you get into competitive eating circles?
Gosh, well, so where it started for us is almost a similar time frame to the cocktail sauce. And when that started is we did the first, St. Elmo shrimp cocktail eating contest, and it was close to I want to say it was 11 years ago, was when we did our first one, or no, 10 years ago. So this last year was the ninth annual, but we had to skip 1 year due to COVID. So we've been doing it for 10 years, and met Joey at that time. And we kind of became buddies, like even pretty early on. That said, I mean, he lived in San Jose, California, and so, but he'd come out every year for our contest, and him and I just became pretty, I guess, as close friends as you can be, living in 3 hours apart time zone, and different, he's in California and I'm in Indianapolis, but we just kind of became close, became friends. And I kind of told him, I was like, hey, what do you, how long do you think you can do competitive eating, down the road, after we known each other 5, 6 years? And he'd come to town for different events. He'd come in for this event called Beefsteak, and he'd come in for that, and throughout the year, and we'd find ways to hang out together. And but I asked him, I was like, hey, look at some of these numbers that we're doing on retail for St. Elmo. It's like you could, potentially do something similar with your own brand, and we could manage it and own it together. And we talked about it for a few years and not really too serious, but eventually we went, all right, let's give it a shot. So we launched, a few menu or a few items on that line. They're all condiments, basically things that he's known for eating. And I'll kind of jump to the end. I mean, in the end, it was successful, in the sense that, we made money. I think 3 out of 4 years we were profitable. But it was just, we found ourselves, myself as well, myself and my team as well as Joey, not being able to dedicate enough time, towards it from a sales and marketing standpoint, and mainly from a marketing and just us representing his brand and doing social media and those types of things, which, I've got a team and we execute really quickly on St. Elmo on opportunities. But with Joey, it's been a challenge, and part of it is because his business has changed. So we're actually in the process of shutting it down because, I really kind of desperate to focus on St. Elmo. And again, even though it was, successful and profitable, while we're running it, Joey's, I mean, just his core business is basically he goes and eats. That's it. That's it. That's what he does. Which, if you can get that job, it's a good gig if you can get it. But yeah, I mean, he's signing, like, five, almost at times even six-figure endorsement deals now, because his notoriety has just really exploded, with some of the collaborations he's done in the past year, and ESPN 30 for 30, and he's doing collaborations with Mr. Beast and these other top YouTubers, and his just the appearance business and brand sponsorship business for him has just absolutely exploded, and he really just doesn't have time to focus on anything other than competitive eating and those opportunities. So, yeah, it's a fun rise. I mean, I think the biggest thing that I try to look at, in terms of how I approach business and marketing is, I think the two words that I think define, or I would like to define, some of my success is, empathy. Just always trying to see things from the other person's perspective. That is a huge one. And then the next is kind of twofold, but it's essentially, somewhere between apathy, lack of, being the opposite of apathy. Apathy is just like coming to work and just going, I don't give a shit today, and I'm not going to try. Quiet quitting is like the term that's been all over LinkedIn the last year or whatever, but is just like, if you're coming into work and you have any sense of apathy over any project, you either need to delegate that or kill it. And so we're coming in with the idea of, how do we kick ass? How do we get better? How do we grow, and keep that 20-30% growth year over year, every year? And really just trying to just murder apathy every single day when you get in, so it doesn't have a chance to thrive. And then with that in mind, the way you do that, I think, is through opportunities. And that was an opportunity that we took the at bat, and it was a lot of fun. But at the same time, business changes, and I think you have to be honest with yourself in terms of what you want to go after and how you want to approach things. And I mean, he's still, I would say he's one of my top two friends in Indiana right now. So, and he lives in Indiana now. He lives up in Westfield. Moved here mainly logistically for his other business. It's like the number of red eyes he had to take from San Jose to the East Coast or Florida or whatever was, I think, slowly killing him. And now he can hop on an hour and a half flight and be in New York. So it's a big difference for him. But yeah, it's I could probably do an hour podcast on why things, why we had the success we did when we did, and why we ended up shutting it down when we did, because of just the challenges and opportunity cost of your time. If you're doing this, you're doing one thing, you can't be doing something else. But it's a fun ride. He's a super amazing dude, unbelievably talented. His work ethic is just weird. I mean, his competitive nature and work ethic, he's all in. He's either all in or all out on everything he does. And when he commits to something, his competitive nature and just who he is as a human being, he's just unmatched. I mean, he's unbelievably competitive dude.
Yeah, and to be fair, I didn't know the outcome of that story when I asked the question, and so I'm really thankful for you to be transparent and bold about, what happened and how it happened. And I think it rings true, something that you said there, is that the opportunity cost of doing something isn't always worth doing. And so from time to time, you can have goals that may not make sense later on, and it's okay to pivot them. And so I really appreciate the time that you spent with me and with the audience today, Bryn. I wish you the ultimate success in things moving forward, and I'm curious to see what's next, because I know there's something next, because there's always something next. So if there's
there's something common. I don't honestly, I don't know what it is. I mean, hopefully we find out tomorrow in our strategic planning meeting for the year. But we're if you want a little bit foreshadowing some of the things we're working on. We're working on a vodka brand right now, to launch a vodka brand that we're really excited about. We've done some product testing on that, and it's winning private. Some sample groups that we've done, some focus groups that we've done, where we're doing basically blind taste testing against the best vodkas out there. Brands, not only Tito's, but brands like Stoli Elite, which is, $50-$60 a bottle. And that vodka is winning, is typically the front runner in these samplings that we're doing, which is kind of blowing us away. And I won't go into the why or the how, but it's a proprietary filtering process that we've gotten into, that we've developed with another Indiana company that's just makes it weirdly smooth, almost scary. And we're also working on a whiskey brand that we've been working on for about 2 to 3 years, that we're super excited about. So, more restaurants are coming. So we're definitely in growth mode and trying to figure out what's the next thing for us. So it's an exciting time to be in the group that we're in, and yeah, we're pumped about the future. So.
I look forward to seeing all of the above happen. I live in Indianapolis, consume the products, love the brand, and Bryn, I really appreciate you taking some time to spend it with me this morning.
Yeah, thanks. It was great to connect with you. I know we've been in each other's DMs and been connected for a while, so it's great to actually make the face-to-face connection. So yeah, hit me up if you ever need anything, and yeah, hopefully we'll go launch some of these other brands, and we can talk about the wins and losses of those maybe in a year.
Outstanding, sir. That's going to bring this episode of the show to a close. Special thanks to Bryn for joining me this week. That was a lot of fun, and hopefully you're still around to the end here, because he was dropping fun nuggets of information about his story and about how they've ultimately been successful the whole time through the episode. And so hopefully you're still with me here, and you could take something away from that can benefit you in your own life. As always, you can give me a comment down below if you got any questions or feedback from this episode, you want to get anything out in front of Bryn, I can help facilitate that. And if you got any feedback for different guests that I can have on the show similar to this world, I'm happy to do that. It's a lot of fun for me, and it's a lot of fun meeting these people, getting to hear their stories. And so if you've got somebody in your head that you're thinking about in that capacity, let me know about it. Feel free to subscribe to the show to be the first to know about new content each and every Wednesday. You can hit the notification bell as well, and I am putting out short form videos each and every day because that is just fun. And if you are looking to transact real estate in the Indiana area, get in touch with me in the comments down below or at indy12.com. Until next time, this is Anthony Drew Gary, host of The How To Show, signing off.